for granted that, oh, well, a new company's going to come in, we're just going to fix it. It's just going to be our culture. And it doesn't happen. It's years to integrate a culture into a company. And that's a piece that I think buyers don't always understand. And you're trying to explain to them, they don't really listen.
Hello and welcome to the Attorney Post, where we give you the inside scoop with top attorneys in their field. And now, here's our host, Justin West.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Attorney Post, where we discuss what's going on in various facets of the law with lawyers at the top of their game to help you navigate the various ins and outs of various legal fields and jurisdictions. Because, as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by Mark Snyderman, who's a partner over at Outside General Counsel Solutions. That's OGC Solutions. Mark, how are you doing this morning?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Well, before we begin, as always, we're going to jump over and take a look at your site. Again, Mark is a partner over at OGC Solutions. OGC Solutions, Outside General Counsel, is a boutique law firm that provides full-service legal support to mid-market companies. Let me move this out of the way here so you guys can see their website. As always, we will have a link down below to their website. That's ogcsolutions.com. They often act as a fractional or virtual legal department. They were founded in 1995, and they offer fixed-fee, business-focused legal services across corporate compliance, employment law, contracts, intellectual property, mergers and acquisitions, and more. With offices in New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia, and Atlanta, they specialize in serving U.S. subsidiaries of foreign companies and clients in industries like printing and packaging. Their model gives businesses high-level legal guidance without the cost of full-time in-house counsel. And again, that is OGC Solutions. We're going to dive into what they do, what Mark does there, and everything else here in a few minutes. Before we get started, as always, though, we are going to read from our sponsors. And our first sponsor today is Groove Funnels. Listen up, entrepreneurs and dream chasers. Running an online business does not have to mean drowning in subscriptions or wrestling with messy tech stacks. Groove is rolling out a jaw-dropping limited time offer. You can run your entire operation thanks to stunning websites with Groove pages, high converting sales funnels, email campaigns, e-commerce stores, even affiliate programs, all absolutely free for an entire year. No credit card, no upfront payments required at all. And that's right, over 1 million users are already saving thousands and scaling their business smarter with this all-in-one platform that replaces tools like ClickFunnels, Shopify, and more. There's no risk, there's no hidden fees, just pure, powerful growth tools that help you focus on what matters most, building your empire. But hurry, because this deal will not last forever. So jump in right now and see why Groove is the secret weapon every entrepreneur needs in 2025. Visit theattorneypost.com/groove today to sign up for free for a full year. Again, no credit card required. And if you can't make it profitable in a year, then you can just cancel. So you really have nothing to lose and everything to gain by trying out Groove. That's theattorneypost.com/groove. theattorneypost.com/groove. And as always, we will have links to our sponsors down below. Our second sponsor for this half of the show is Habanero Social. What if Google could send you free customers or free clients every single month? With Habanero Social, it's not a fantasy, it's a reality. Their AI-powered platform optimizes your Google business profile to attract more customers effortlessly from your Google business profile. From cranking out high-quality content to managing reviews and fine-tuning your local SEO, Habanero Social handles it all while you sit back and simply watch your business grow. 85% of searches happen within the Google Maps pack if it's a local search, and that's the place that you need to be in order to capture those clients. An optimized Google Business Profile doesn't just show up, it engages, it builds trust, increases clicks, and ultimately boosts your business. And they're so confident that it works, that what they do will work, they offer a 3x ROI guarantee. That means you will make at least 3 times what you spend with this company, or they will make it right, either refund your money or work for free. So stop wasting time on old school tactics. Visit habanerosocial.com today and automate everything you need to rank higher, engage better, and drive more clients or customers to your business. That's habanerosocial.com. Let AI do the heavy lifting for you, completely risk-free. All right, that was a mouthful. I'm going to jump back over here. So again, Mark, good morning. Thanks for joining me today. I am joined with Mark Snyderman. He is a seasoned legal business strategist and a partner over at OGC Solutions, holding pivotal roles as General Counsel, Chief Compliance Officer, and I just totally lost my space. Chief Compliance Officer and Chief Operating Officer. With extensive experience, he helps steer companies through complex legal landscapes, compliance demands, and operational challenges. Mark disrupts traditional law firm models by embedding himself directly into client teams, offering subscription-based counsel tailored to growing businesses. His blend of legal compliance and C-suite operations expertise empowers mid-market firms to scale confidently and strategically. Now, that was a nice little blurb about you, but I'm sure I'm missing some of the key components. My very first question, Mark, as always, is what did I miss? Tell me about you.
Well, first, thanks for the ad because it was great. It's great quality advertising for us. We appreciate it.
There you
Uh,
go.
I
I
would
won't even
say,
charge you.
yeah, no charge for that too. It was amazing. Thank you. So I think the stuff that's missing is kind of the, who am I? Why do I do what I do? I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan. I don't know if you are familiar with Simon. He's a management theorist, and they call him the eternal optimist. But he created
Mhm.
what they call the golden circle of why, is people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I've kind of been bought into that and kind of been trying to build my why. And I do what I do because I really like small business and smaller businesses and growth businesses, and I like to help. So it's kind of why I do everything, all my businesses, because I'm not just a lawyer, I'm an entrepreneur, and everything that I do kind of mixes together into that same bag, which is I'm always trying to help businesses grow and do things and help people achieve their dreams. It sounds a little corny, but it's kind of really what drives me every day. And I help out on nonprofit boards. I'm on the board of Ironbound Boxing, which is using boxing to get kids off the streets in Newark and teach them grit and entrepreneurship. It sounds a little disjointed, but it actually works really, really well to get these kids, into a different mindset and off the streets and thinking straight and clear and, focused on one thing. And then they use that to kind of build up. We do some entrepreneurship classes and help them build up their skill sets. And then I also support a couple veterans charities because a lot of my work has been Department of Defense over the years.
Mhm.
So in order to, I hate the term give back, but kind of give back to the community that has helped put me and put all of us in the position to be and where we are. I like to support veterans charities wherever I can.
That's awesome. Oop, there we go. Sorry, everything just went black on my screen for a second. There we go. We're back. No, that's really awesome. And supporting the veterans, I think, is a huge thing. The boxing thing is fascinating. I've heard of a couple different. There was I think it was a Catholic priest in the area where I grew up who did the same thing.
Yeah.
This was like in like the 1920s or 30s, and he found a bunch of kids that were living on the street and having a rough life, and he literally taught them boxing. He had like golden gloves. They called him like the priest with the golden gloves, and I cannot remember his name.
That's so
But
cool.
I think they wrote like I think there's even like a movie about him or something
Yeah.
because he was one of those inspiring stories. So the fact that you're doing the same thing, like that's awesome. Like that really is that's very, very cool. So let me ask you this. And obviously, I already gave you some free advertisement, but give
Yeah.
me a pitch for your firm. If I didn't know anything about you, Mark, you and I are stuck in an elevator going up for 30 seconds
Sure.
or a minute. And I was like, hey, Mark, tell me about what you do. Give me your pitch. Tell me about OGC. Tell me what you guys do. Who do you help? Where do they come from? Why do they choose to work with you guys? What benefits do you offer to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I always say, good business lawyers are also business people. Like there's a lot of business lawyers that are just corporate lawyers and they've never
Mm.
worked in a company, they've never done in-house work, they've never worked, as a chief operating officer or try to found a company. I've done all those things, and most of my partners have done the same. We're a lot of former general counsels. We've worked in companies. So we're different, right? We think different. We understand that the business needs a yes, and it's our job to help you figure out how to get to a yes, if at all possible. Our first instinct isn't no, let's research that. Our first instinct is yes, we're going to figure out how to help you do that, right? And it's a very different mindset, which is I think that it's a huge difference between being in-house and being out and being an outside attorney. And I was only a outside attorney at the very beginning of my career for about 18 months. I went in-house and have been in-house and then building companies and growing companies and a C-level executive for my whole career. And I would say our difference is we look at things differently
Mhm.
because we're in-house counsel now acting as outside, but we're really trying to be your in-house counsel. You just can't afford, you're probably not at a point where you need a full-time GC or you need a full-time legal department. We come in and provide what we call the virtual legal department, right? Because we have employment lawyers, we have regulatory attorneys, we have trademark and IP attorneys. We have some of pretty much everything you need, plus a full-scale litigation department. So when someone comes to us with a company that is growing and needs support, you're not getting just one attorney to support you. You're getting a staff of 20 some attorneys across the domain and a point person, GC, fractional GC type person like myself that is really running your risk management for you. And, so we can take on every kind of issue. I mean, your employment handbook needs rewrite. Or you don't have one. It doesn't matter what those pieces are. We have access and we've done all of it. We've done investigations. We have union representative attorneys. We have all of the mix of stuff that can go on in a business to support you. And you're going to pay one flat fee per month. So it really is it's a game changer for growing companies to be able to know, oh, I have an expense that this is what it is, and anybody and everybody can call. And I
Mhm.
also say the biggest difference that you end up with by doing in the model is people, usually the only person that will call the attorney is either the chief operating officer, the chief executive officer, the owner of the company, because they're afraid of the legal bill.
Yeah.
Once you change the legal bill model, and they're on a subscription, they'll let HR call directly. They'll let accounting call directly. They'll let, anybody, whoever needs support can call the attorney directly and get support. And it really frees up the owner from a lot of stuff that they're involved in that they don't need to be involved in day to day. So I think there's a lot of upside that comes out of it.
Gotcha. What are we talking about roughly on the price itself? Because this is something I'm sure people listening are going to be very,
Sure.
very curious about. What would normally hiring someone or having them as in counsel cost in-house? And how does that compare to what you guys usually
I
charge? And I'm
mean,
sure that there's a range of services and prices, obviously, but roughly what are we looking at? So people who are curious
yeah, I
if this is something
mean,
they should be diving down.
if you were to hire a GC and maybe a deputy GC or another paralegal or an associate underneath them to run your legal, you're at a minimum in the 200K a year range, 2 to
Mhm.
250. That's light, but it's okay. I'll give you that.
If you've got budget counsel,
Yeah, you got budget
fresh
counsel,
out of law school, right?
fresh out of law. They're not 30-year attorneys like most of us in my firm. We're gonna be probably half that, if not
Gotcha.
better.
If not better.
If not
That's
better.
awesome. No,
Yeah.
that makes it very uh livable. I mean, for a
Yeah.
lot of people,
It's
that's
it's a it's definitely budget conscious, but not quality conscious. You're not losing any quality, you're gonna gain.
gotcha. So you're talking at that price, really just a few $1,000s, maybe upwards of 10,000 a month, but
Yeah, but that's
for
a that's a larger company that's in that 10K
and
range.
that's
I
for a
mean,
large, yeah, for
yeah,
a large
that's a
company.
that's a that's you probably have a couple hundred employees. You're a decent sized company.
Yeah, so that's a drop in the bucket for someone like that, but that
Yeah.
that seems like the most. I mean, are you guys worried about being able to make ends meet? Like a company that big, do they ever make too many demands on you guys? How do you keep up with the demands that they make?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a matter of, we've all been doing this long enough to understand what needs are and estimate those needs pretty well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's like any fixed fee model, right? At some point, there's going to be months where you're going to get crushed, right? It will happen, but that's a buy-in in order to get to the long-term relationship building that you get from doing it this way, right? I'd rather have a client for the next 20 years than have a client for 2 months that paid me a ton of money and was miserable and wasn't happy with our service than say, well, we love OGC, we love Mark. They're phenomenal. They always meet our demands. And we know we do reviews with the clients to say, hey, we're getting crushed over here. We need to move this up a little bit. And actually in my personal practice, right, my portion of the practice, I've actually never moved the client up. And since I started doing this in 2016, I've moved one client down from the price that they were at just because I was like, you're not using, like, there's not as much here as I thought was going to be here for me to
Mhm.
do. You don't need me that much. I'd rather you pay less and not be mad at me that you're paying what you're paying than and keep me around and know that I'm here.
No, that's a great model, and I do the same thing with my clients too. So
Yeah.
It's like we don't want to overkill things. We want to do what you need and make sure that you're happy because I'd much rather have you around for 8 to 10 years as a
Yeah.
client than, 6 months and you're ticked and you leave me a bad review or something like that.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, the model's built on the concept that, as a company grows, they may end up actually hiring a GC in-house. And we'd love to do that for you and help you hire the person and help you interview the person and set the person up. Because that attorney still is going to need outside counsel to support them.
mhm.
We can lower our monthly fee and still support that GC.
That's
And
interesting. So even as you help them onboard their own in-house legal team, you guys are still probably it would make sense for you guys to be
yeah,
an intricate part of all that. Plus, at that point, you know a lot of the ins and outs of the business, and
yeah, we're integrally involved and help grow that business to where it is. You'd be you'd be
you'd be silly.
short-sighted to let us out to not keep us around.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that makes perfect sense. And so you guys work with businesses of all sizes. You work with
yeah,
businesses. I read before you guys have offices in 4 cities, but I'm assuming you work across the whole country
yeah,
and even internationally.
correct.
I'm assuming 99% of what you guys do is virtual.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So,
mean, the Parsippany office in North Jersey is sort of the headquarters. There are a bunch of our attorneys and staff live in that area and go into the office, most quite often. But
mhm.
the reality of the work that we're doing is all virtual, right? You're not, other than litigation, right? So people have to go to court. There's actual court appearances still, but the most of the GC type work is virtual work. I'm purely virtual.
Gotcha. Random side question. Obviously, we just got through 5 years ago with a pandemic that
Yeah.
affected the world and kind of
Did we
shut
have one
things
of
down.
those things? Did that
I,
happen?
I read about it on the news somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, especially since you guys do a lot of your stuff virtually. How did that affect you guys? Did it affect you in different states? Did you have to figure out, the laws and compliances
Yeah, I mean, there
in
was
every
definitely a
single
lot.
state and city? Like, how did you guys roll with those punches, and did it affect you at all?
Yeah, I mean, it affected the clients a lot, right? So, and anything that affects your clients affects you. You're always trying to help them figure out how to comply, how are you going to deal with what's going on. Like I have a lot of government contracting clients, and obviously the federal contracting issue, there was a huge issue with vaccinations, and you couldn't walk on base if you didn't have a vaccination. You had to prove you had vaccinations. So we had to build up, quick tech solutions to help the client, right? That's where we had to become like, as opposed to just being lawyers, we had to be tech people, right?
Yeah.
Because we got to read and understand the regulation. What can we hold? Where can we hold it? How do we hold it? And what do you need? And then help them build a tech solution to actually answer that mail. And it was one of the things we did that actually was, super supportive of the clients. They loved it because I was able to build out, some jot forms with a nice database, and they could hold the data and they could query it and all that kind of good stuff super quickly. And we were able to build out the questionnaires to make sure they were in compliance with HIPAA and all the other laws that you kind of applied at the time.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. Um, Let me ask you a more general question just for a minute. You've
Sure.
been practicing for 30 years, you've been in law. If I
I'm just
caught you
about,
saying that
yeah. I'm
just
getting
about,
close to 30. I can't believe it, but I'm getting there.
that means you must be what, 45, right?
Yeah. I wish.
Um, so let me ask you this: what got you into law, and particularly
Yeah.
into business law? Now, you already told me you're kind of an entrepreneur at heart, so I'm assuming that's what drove it. But did you always know you wanted to be an attorney? Did you
Yeah. I'm
did you
one of
grow up watching
those.
Perry Mason or?
I'm one of those like, and it's crazy. Like I was in, fourth or fifth grade and we did the trial of Hansel and Gretel, like a
Oh,
mock trial. And I was like the defending, counsel, in the mock trial. And I kind of decided at that time that like I like this stuff. This is what I'm going to do. And honestly, never really wavered off of it. I kind of just sat on that as my kind of goal and concept for the rest of my, education career, and
yeah,
just kind of drove straight through it and right into law. But I always knew what I did learn, probably before law school, and law school kind of solidified it for me that I was not going to do anything that was litigation, bound. It's not my passion. It's not my style. I'm not, I prefer not to be so antagonistic. It's just not in my nature. So I chose corporate business law because I think I gravitated it from the entrepreneurship side. I kind of saw that in-house was something that I really kind of wanted to try, and I saw that as a path to get to it. So I went into corporate and securities law, when I first got out of law school.
Gotcha. You know what's really funny is doing this podcast in general. I talk to all sorts of attorneys, and there's
Sure.
really there's the two main schools of thought. One of them is very laid back. I'm here to help people and want to grow their business. And then the other side is the guys that love to litigate and like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm here to do battle.
Yeah, they're in the battle. They're warriors, which
Yeah.
I think of myself as a warrior in a different way.
Yeah.
Everybody has to be a warrior in their life and battle through things. But I don't like to battle through the. I don't want my whole day to be, a fight over a discovery request. It just seems like I mean, I appreciate what they do, and I think it's really, hard work, but I don't have that in me.
Well, it's famously said that the pen is mightier than the sword. So,
Right.
some people might be gladiating with swords, but
That's right.
you still might be doing the harder work there. So, you never know. Okay, so in your 30 years of law, um, have you so again, you go up to bat enough, nobody bats 1,000. And
Sure.
I'm sure that you've had some things in your legal career that you would consider to be a failure, a setback, things didn't turn out the way you were hoping. Can you let me listeners, Mark, know about one of the times in your legal career where you had a setback or you had a failure? But what did you learn from it, and how do you carry that forward to always make sure you're giving the best care to your clients?
Sure. I mean, you always have like you can't do anything without failures. And if you're not failing, you're not really succeeding, honestly, because you're not learning. So I think it's a great question I'm trying to think of how to tell stories that don't, keep the innocent, the names of the innocent. But I would say,
I didn't say this in the pre-roll, but I'll tell you right now, just so you know, if you accidentally say the name, let me know, or say something you shouldn't have said,
okay.
let me know afterwards. We can fix it in post. Do your best not to, but we can always fix it in post. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, but I would say actually I look at any deal that doesn't close as a failure. Right. I mean, and it's not always my specific failure, but it's my job normally I'm a buyer's counsel in most cases. I've done some sell side work, but most of my M&A work is on the buy side.
Mhm.
So if a deal doesn't close, I fault myself that I didn't see something or I missed something or I didn't push where I needed to push. And, it's kind of the deal attorney's job to make sure that we're getting to closing. And I've been doing more of this work more recently. And I would say, like I had one go super sideways and it ended up not closing just recently, within the last year. And it was there was multiple franchises involved that needed to be assigned. There was, working capital issues, all the normal stuff that goes on in a transaction. And I feel like I let too much happen because the client and the seller were driving a lot and just kind of doing their thing and didn't insert myself enough into the process
Mm.
and, be more assertive when I needed to. I was kind of letting it kind of play the way I thought it was going to play out. And I saw things going sideways and I should have jumped in earlier and maybe I don't know that I could have, but maybe I could have made that deal happen. When instead it didn't happen, there's breakage costs, there's all kinds of ugly stuff that goes on when deals don't close. So
No,
I
that
would
makes
say,
sense.
what I've learned is, you know, trying to drive the process in a more formulaic manner. I keep thinking that, the more structured you can kind of make things and kind of give it, here's the way this will drive and kind of take some people out of it that shouldn't really be day to day driving that transaction.
Gotcha. No, that makes perfect sense. And you can't win them all, obviously. Not every deal
No.
goes through, but that that that
Yeah,
makes
they
perfect sense.
always hurt when they don't happen because you feel like like sometimes I mean I've had some like that don't close and you say that's probably a blessing. Like you actually just dodged a bullet because I
Yeah.
saw, that you didn't close because we saw something, we found something in
Mm.
diligence, and we walked away from the deal. Those are the ones where you say, okay, well, that was the job, right? The job is to find that stuff so that somebody didn't walk into a situation that was going to be 2 years from now. absolutely the worst business they've ever bought, and they're miserable and they're losing their shirt over it. You know,
Multiple times in the last year or so, I've seen comedic tropes about Willy Wonka.
okay,
And the gist goes, he was trying to give away his chocolate factory because the Oompa Loompas are slaves, or
yeah,
because there's a health regulation, or people keep dying in the chocolate swamp, or whatever it happens to be. And he's just trying to like pass
he's just trying to get rid of it.
indemnity to somebody
Yeah.
else. Have you ever found a situation similar to that where you're
Oh,
like, this is
there's a
somebody?
lot of Willy Wonkas out there. Oh yeah. Yeah, we looked at it when I was running my business. So I was a chief operating officer of an engineering company, for a year, for about 10 years. And we were acquiring businesses. We were looking to acquire a shop, like a machine shop, and we found one, and everything looked great. The shop was great, the work was great. Like it had everything that we wanted. It was in this cool old building, and so we were getting this really cool building with it. Like there was a lot of really cool stuff about it, and we're digging and digging, and I'm like, there's got to be something wrong somewhere because the price was a little lower than I thought it would be,
Mhm.
and we finally found that the guy hadn't paid workers' comp in 10 years.
Oh.
Like never paid it, just failed to have it.
And that if somebody bought that business, that would have
You were
been
picking up that liability.
that
That's a
liability.
Willy Wonka, right? That was, like the slave labor, like he had laborers that were totally uncovered. And, there had to have been injuries. There had to have been stuff that happened over the years. And the new buyer would be picking up all that liability.
Gotcha. That's crazy. But I mean, I get it. What was that? I don't know if you can say this or not, but I'm assuming he knew better and he just chose not to, or did he
Yeah.
just like, oh, I didn't realize I had to pay this? Because
Oh, he knew it.
I mean, I get that.
There's no
Like,
such thing. Yeah, that's there's no way he didn't know that he was supposed to be doing what he wasn't doing.
gotcha, gotcha. Well, the flip side of my question is about successes, and maybe that's a success right there.
Yeah.
Um, but what's one or two of the things in your legal career, Mark, that you're most proud of? You're falling asleep at night, and you're thinking back on how things have gone. You're just like, man, I can't believe that worked out so well, or I'm so proud of that. What's one or two of the feathers in your proverbial legal cap?
Well, I think, actually, honestly, anytime you help and you get a thank you, you feel pretty good about that you provided the right service at the right time. And it could be something small and it could be something big, like it could be a transaction, right?
Mhm.
I recently helped a minority veteran buy a business that was bigger than hers, and set her up. And, she wrote the nicest, one of the most heartfelt, letters to me that I've ever gotten about, changing her life and helping her change her life and achieve the vision that she always had of where she could be. And, that is like, you don't really need much more than that in your
Yeah.
lifetime. Like, I was like, okay, I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
if I don't do any more transactions, like, that was it. Like, that's the one. Right.
Gotcha.
So I would say, you have those in your career where you have big moments and, you win stuff at arbitration, you win, and all those things are meaningful, but it's way more meaningful to me to have, done something that helped somebody in a way like that, that she felt moved enough to say that. Like that was like, that's kind of it for me.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Here's a totally random question.
Yeah.
I've started asking this because I just find it funny to see a lawyer's opinion on this. Who's your favorite attorney in pop culture?
Oh, that is actually a good question. I don't watch that much like legal, like, a lot of lawyers will watch a lot of Law and Order and SVU and all of them. And I have not, well, I've seen a lot of clips of it on TikTok. Suits is pretty interesting. I think that's an interesting character. I don't know if he's my favorite. I'd probably say, my cousin Vinny, Joe Pesci.
The most common answer I get, actually, I think, is my cousin Benny, which is
Yeah.
hilarious. Like he's literally doing law. This is one of the best representations of what it's like to be an attorney that we've
Yeah.
ever, that's awesome.
Get thrown into the swamp and just go do it. Like,
Everyone falls back on my cousin Benny. So
yeah,
I need to
go
go
figure it
rewatch
out.
that. We'll put a link in the description down below. You can go buy a copy on Amazon or something. So it's worth the time. Um, so here's one more kind of a out of left field question.
Yeah.
One of the things I find is a lot of times as an attorney, and maybe the Wonka situations would fall into this. Attorneys deal with absurdities a lot. And sometimes those absurdities come in the requests that a client makes or a situation you find yourself in. What's one of the most absurd moments that you've had in law? Again, maybe it's a client expectation. Maybe it's a business that you help someone dodge. Maybe it was, whatever it happens to be, or just, general day-to-day stuff. Like, I can't believe this happens and it happens all the time. What's one of the
Yeah.
most absurd things you deal with in your line of work?
Oh, God. It's actually hard to pin one down because it's a there's constant, absurdities that happen where you
Well,
just
this makes good podcast fodder, so you can do two or three if you really
yeah,
want.
you kind of look at you look at your screen and say, I don't even believe that just like that they're even thinking that. Like, when they, like clients just ask for things like, I mean, there's the normal absurdity of I need this in 30 minutes. And that's just law practice absurdity, right? We all deal with that every day of, okay, oh, so you don't, I have nothing else to do, and that's just all I do all day is wait for you to call me. But I would say, you know, you, you- actually, I probably get more absurdity from other attorneys than I do from my clients.
Mm,
Like from especially in corporate business law. I think there's a lot of it in litigation too, but in business law in particular, when you do M&A deals, there's a lot of attorneys that end up doing M&A deals that have never done one before.
hmm
They're a general practitioner, they're the family attorney, and the business goes up and they're going to sell the business. They call their family attorney. The family attorney has never done a deal before, and they're in the middle of a transaction, and they're redlining documents. Or I would say the one we just talked about this at a roundtable I was on the other day. So when you're doing a deal with the SBA, right? So the Small Business Administration loans money for small businesses to be bought and sold, right? It's called the 7A program. It's a great program. Now, if the SBA loans money to the deal, then the SBA is the prime lender, right? Anything that, they're going to have security collateral over everything that you ever owned or did in your lifetime. And they get a personal guarantee. They get everything. If the business goes up, you as the founder, as the borrower, you're going down, right? They're going to come after you for everything. It's normal, right? It's the bank.
mm,
Right? And it happens to be not just a bank, it's the federal bank, right? It's the SBA.
yeah,
So anybody that borrows that loans money to the company is required to sign an agreement that says, yes, we understand the SBA is in prime position, and it's a document that the SBA spits out on laser on that spits out, right? It's not a negotiable document. Any attorney should know that is non-negotiable. There's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is.
yeah.
Just tell your client to sign it if they want to do the deal. And I can't tell you how many times I have seen attorneys literally rewrite a subordination agreement. Now that not only have they wasted, our time in the deal, they've wasted, thousands of dollars of their client's money
Yeah.
trying to negotiate something that is non-negotiable.
Do you suppose they ever do that on purpose? Like, hey, maybe
Uh-huh.
we can try to get this,
Yeah.
I can't
Oh,
guarantee this will
I'm gonna
work,
fight,
but
it's the I'm gonna fight for you. I'm taking care of you. We're not gonna let this they don't get all this. We're not gonna let this happen. And it's just it's BS, right? You should know better and you should protect your client's money better. I do see a lot. One of the reasons why I love fixed price, and I do fixed price on mergers and acquisitions as well, which a lot of people don't like to do. And
yeah,
yeah, I could say I've gotten killed on some, absolutely hammered on some deals. But I'm not doing the deal specific to try to do only that deal. I'm trying to build the relationship to have a long-term client.
yeah.
So if I get killed on the deal, it happens.
That's what we call upfront costs, right?
Yeah, right. Sunk cost.
Client
Yeah, client
acquisitions.
acquisition cost. It's going to happen, and it's okay. But a lot of people, I've seen. small business transactions for let's say a 5 or 8 million dollar revenue company and a seller's attorney charging, I saw a bill for 75,000 or 80,000 at closing. That's
Wow.
insanity. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I feel awful for the seller. Like
But it
there's
probably
some
gets
reason they spent that
it
much
almost feels
money.
like it's bundled in for some people, I'm sure. Like, oh, it's a, $8 million price tag total, and so this little percentage is what we're making or
Yeah.
whatever. Like I'm sure they just kind of blur the lines and like, oh, don't worry about it, it's all just part of the cost. And so it's
Yeah,
all a
like
write-off anyway, right?
yeah, but it's a write-off. Who's gonna write it off? Even know what a write-off is?
So speaking of mergers and acquisitions, what do you think is one of the most misunderstood parts of the process? Particularly from since you do a lot of buyer side stuff.
Yeah.
What are the misapprehensions or what's the word I'm looking for? My brain is not wording good right now. The the things people bring to the table, they just don't realize that they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. Like
Yeah.
what do you want to disabuse potential
Yeah,
buyers?
I'd say like the big pieces are, when you buy a company, making sure that there's sufficient capital to actually operate the company.
Mm,
Like the seller is always going to try to take all the money out. The buyer needs to convince the seller to leave some money in the business. And it's always it's a very misunderstood part of the transaction and we call it the working capital adjustment. And it creates a lot of drama, like in the transaction, and a lot of, like I say, you have a lot of sell side attorneys that may not have had experience in it and they don't understand it, and they can't explain to their client that this is just they have to do this,
mhm.
right? You can't sell somebody your business and walk away with all the cash and say, here you go, here's the business. They're destined to fail because they don't have enough capital to run. You had all this capital that was in the business. There's a certain amount of capital you have to leave in the business for it to operate.
Yeah.
You can't just walk away and close the door and say, okay, here's a new door. Oh, wait, but I don't have money to pay the bills. I can't pay the employees. I can't pay anybody. Well, or I got to go borrow all that. Well, what good does that do? You just stuck the business in a hole that it wasn't in before the transaction.
Hmm.
So I would say
That's
that's
interesting.
probably one of the biggest areas that I see of where people don't really understand it. And there's not a lot of good education. One of the things I've been working on is I kind of started this other site called prepforma.com
Hmm.
where I'm trying to work on actually providing, we have like assessments, like how ready are you to do a transaction to buy a company, to sell a company. And we're working on some education right now, kind of an M&A 101 class between myself, a financial person, and an ops person to kind of give here's the scope of what it takes to build out and do a transaction, and here's the kind of things you need to understand so that there's a place people can buy some real education, and kind of learn the process. There's a couple really good books out there, but people don't like reading books anymore. So I figured it's easier to maybe, kind of create one of those training platforms and training piece that people can, kind of go to and learn.
What was that website again?
It's prep for the number four
Ah,
ma.com.
I was trying to pull it up and it wasn't pulling up, but I was using
Yeah,
FOR. We'll jump over really quickly. I'm going to give a free plug to this one
I
since you're here
appreciate
with
that.
me. So this is prep4ma.com, prep4ma.com. Get ready to buy or sell, help get deals done. So there you go. If you guys are looking to buy or sell your business, I would definitely come here and just take a look and get some information because again, knowledge is power. And again, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. That's the tagline of our show, and it's absolutely correct. That's also why we always say you should have an attorney working with you at all times. So that is prep4ma.com. I'll try to remember to put that down in the byline for you guys. But
I appreciate
prep
that.
the number 4ma.com. Let me come back over here. So,
Yeah, we always say,
so
you're going to pay for an attorney in the beginning, or you're going to pay for an attorney afterwards.
yeah, this is true. This is
You're
true.
better off paying. It's a lot cheaper to do it in the front end than it is to do it on the back end.
Yeah, well, what's the phrase? A stitch in time saves nine, right?
Yeah,
So you take care of things up front, and then you don't have to worry about all of the fallout when everything breaks and falls apart. And now you've got 10,000 fires to put out. Put out the one fire, and
exactly.
get that taken care of. What are some of the red flags you look for, other than the capital? What are the red flags you look for when you're doing due diligence that a client usually misses?
I mean, I'm usually looking, the first place I go is in the HR files
Hmm.
because it tells stories. Lack of anything in the file tells you one story. Like when you go and there's nothing, that's a whole different story.
It's a squeaky clean company. They just
Yeah.
have no problems, man.
Right? Yeah, and then sometimes you go in the files and you see these voluminous, like just write-ups and discussions, and it tells you a lot about how they manage and operate a company. It kind of, you actually can guide you. I use it as I go there first because it kind of guides me to look for what else I need to look for. It tells a lot of story, right? There's a lot of narrative built in the HR and the employment side. And in the end, most companies, almost every company you're at, your employees are your biggest asset. And how you treat them and what you do to them is going to tell me a lot about the culture of the company, the how safe are they, if it's a manufacturing plant, like if there's a lot of safety issues, like all those kind of things are not saying you can't fix them all because everything's fixable, but some things are harder to fix than others, right?
Right.
Culture is hard to fix. Like, I mean, people take it for granted that, oh, well, a new company's going to come in, we're just going to fix it. And it's just going to be our culture. And it doesn't happen. It's years to integrate a culture into a company. And that's a piece that I think buyers don't always understand. And you're trying to explain to them, they don't really listen. They don't like to, they don't, they kind of think that, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But I say that, I do it from experience. I ran a company, I've bought companies and tried to integrate them into a larger company. And it took years to get them ever to really, let's say buy into your vision and your secret sauce and how you do things and why you think the way you think
Hmm.
and how you see them structured into the organization, they'll kind of keep running on their own thing and doing their own thing for a long time. And they'll fight you because they just don't see it. They don't understand it.
You're just the attorney. What do you know?
Exactly. You're just the attorney. What do you know? So that's why I
Um,
try to say, like, I always try to tell people, like, if you want just an attorney that's going to just give you legal advice, I'm probably not the right guy.
yeah,
I'm okay telling people, like, if you just want a contract review, don't call me. Like, the one-off contract review, I'm not the best person to do that for you.
yeah.
Like, that's not where that's not, you're losing, you're not going to get the value add that I want to give and that I need to give. And I want you to stay, I want you to want to work with me. I don't want to work with somebody just, hey, look at this, lease agreement. Okay, great.
Mhm.
There's lots of people that could do that stuff. And you don't need a 30-year attorney to do it either.
That makes sense. When you're advising a business, particularly if they're in let's say a heavily regulated industry, how do you help them stay compliant but not stifle innovation?
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Is, making sure they understand what do they need to be doing and still letting that business grow and do what it wants to do and what it needs
Yeah.
to do. So I think the advantage I have is that I actually was a chief operating officer and the general counsel of a engineering IT services firm, so we were innovating all the time. So I think it's making sure that you can explain properly what the regulation is, how it affects the people, you've set up this policy and procedure, right? What does it mean? And why is it so important to the company to comply with this? And that when you give people the understanding of what it is and why they need to do it, they'll do it. And it won't stifle everything else. They don't just look at it as, oh, you're just trying to crush what we do. You're just trying to be, you're being belt and suspenders. You're not paying, you don't know what we need to do every day.
Yeah.
And I think when you can kind of show them, here's what the real value here, look, we have this regulation, we have no choice, right? We have to comply with it, and here's the consequences if we don't. And when 90, a lot of times you can say the consequences, we don't have a company anymore. You don't have a job, right? Like we
It's
can't
kind
we
of a
see, we
big
cease
consequence.
like we cease to exist when you do, because I do a lot of federal contracting, and the end consequence typically is, well, the government can take away your right to do business with the federal government
Yeah.
at any given time. They can do it at any time they want. for if you fail to meet requirements. They're very, and they should, right? I mean, it's federal funds, it's appropriated money. It's, you have a lot of obligation to what that money is and where it's going to get spent. And if you can't comply, then you shouldn't be in the business.
I mean, that's fair, 100%.
It's a fair thing for them to say, and it's a fair thing, so but there's ways, so it's understanding what are those requirements and how do we comply with them in a way that we can still, as you said, not stifle innovation and not stifle the company from growing forward. And it is a balance, right? It is not an easy thing to do in heavy regulated environments.
Hmm. What's an area that you wish people would bring to you sooner? Like an area that people just delay and delay and delay on and they shouldn't be delaying on?
Uh, Usually that's HR issues. A
I
lot
kind
of
of figured you
HR.
were going to say that, but I didn't know for sure if that was the.
Yeah, I mean, I think, by the time, a lot of times, that's one of the reasons why I like the model that we use is we typically get called in earlier than
Yeah,
if we were just traditional billable, you're not getting called unless there's,
that's
a
just an
fire,
emergency.
the
Yeah,
fire's burned and the house is already, it's all blown up already.
yeah,
And now you're cleaning it up. But at least we're usually there before the fire gets set, but not always.
yeah.
Like you want to be on that front end conversation when they first start having when they realize that the employee is going sideways or something or the relationship isn't going well. You'd love to be in that for one of those first conversations and say, okay, you clearly have an issue. This is gonna end up in a termination because I know it, right?
Yeah.
And here's how you prepare yourself and the employee for that inevitability in a better way. Here's the documentation we're gonna want. Here's if you can lay it all out, then the manager and the HR department can just kind of execute on a pathway that actually is best for both parties.
Gotcha. It's one of the things I find fascinating about what you do. So years ago, and I'm not trying to shout out a competitor. I don't think they really are a competitor to you guys.
Sure.
Like literally 20 years ago, I was involved with a company that used to go by the name Prepaid Legal Services Incorporated,
Yep.
PPLSI. They're now Legal Shield. I've always loved that concept. In fact, I was a seller for a while. I made it to director or manager or something like that. It was a multi-level marketing company.
Yeah.
It was my first real taste of sales. And it was neat because it gave you corporate, you can go in and do it as an employee benefit. You could do it. It really was unique in a
Oh
way that
yeah. I think it's great.
Amway
Yeah.
and Amway and stuff wasn't. But and I still use the product to this day. Now I've been butting heads with them for the last year. They've changed a lot. I'm not super happy. So again, I'm not gonna praise or shoot them down necessarily, but the concept I always thought was solid because I would call my attorney on a regular basis about things that if I didn't have an attorney on retainer,
Yeah.
for, $20 a month or whatever, I would never call them, multiple speeding tickets and things like that. So this
Yeah.
is, and really what you guys are doing is just, again, the
It's the
business
same
version.
conceptually the same thing, just at a corporate business level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it lowers the barrier. And
Yeah.
again, our tagline, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Like I have to say that this is the model I think a lot of people should be on. I mean, if you've got a
Yeah.
multi-trillion dollar company or something, if you're Apple, sure, have
Yeah,
your.
then you should have 150 attorneys in your pocket that you're
But,
using
but
all day long.
for the guy that runs a cardboard box factory that employs 150 people, for a small medical
Yeah, for a
practice,
fraction
whatever.
of what he probably spends in a year on legal anyway.
Yeah,
Like usually, one of the things you can do is you first ask for, how much did you spend in legal the last 3 years?
yeah,
And we know we can beat it and flatten it out because they're paying on the back end. They're not paying on the front end. They're
yeah.
paying for a
No,
cleanup, and the cleanup costs a fortune.
that's
Cleanup aisle
that's
6 is way messier than you just clean than prepping the place so that you didn't ever get the spill.
absolutely. No, absolutely, absolutely. So you mentioned before you had to talk someone down a little bit, but have you ever had to fire a subscription client? Have you ever had to fire somebody?
I did fire one. I can't really say much about it because it
Okay,
would easily give away who they were. But yeah,
that's
I let a client go. I I did not agree with their ethos, I would say.
gotcha. That's fair. I'm not going to push.
Yeah.
Probably won't pry any further. I'll respect the confidentiality there. So you served as a GC, you've served as a CCO, you've served as a COO. How do those overlap, and how do they inform what you're doing when you're working with clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, the GC piece is where you kind of learn how to, be an in-house count. I started out my career, like I said, in a law firm, and I moved in-house quickly. And I spent like 6 years in-house in a public company. So
Hmm.
you learn a lot about inner workings of departments and how companies work. And then when I became a chief operating officer, it was a smaller company, but I still knew I had all that kind of background knowledge that kind of fed that. So everything's kind of built on top of each other for me, like through my career, to get to this point where I basically have like, okay, I have the business side. I've done everything from startup through, public company and
Hmm.
been involved in it. So it gives me a really good range of responsiveness and other business strategy that other lawyers may not think about because they don't have that experience,
Yeah.
in terms of, and specifically in HR kind of things. Like I've hired and fired, and it's not a joke when I say that I've been personally responsible for hiring hundreds of people. I've
Yeah.
interviewed thousands myself, right? And you gain a different perspective just from doing that. And
Yeah.
I would say a lot of people don't have that experience. And that experience, it helps you understand, like, I'll get asked to help with interviews still because it's just a skill set you kind of build up over time.
Yeah.
Like you'd be very good at it because you ask really good questions and you have a great delivery. I'm not trying to pump you up. I'm just saying, like, there's something about
Checks,
like,
the checks in the mail, Mark. The checks in the
right?
mail.
But no, there's something about like understanding how to do that, right?
Yeah.
It's a skill that a lot of people don't have. Like they may have it, but they don't know they have it. They've never tried to practice it. Like, and you have to hone that skill in. Like I remember the first time I did an employee interview, I didn't know what I was, I'm Googling like what to ask. I mean, obviously now it's so much easier
Now
to
it's
use
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Now I chat GPT it, which is and it's like, it gives you some, if your prompt is really good, it gives you a great set of questions.
Yeah.
It does take some thinking out of it. But
I'm not gonna lie. A lot of my questions when I am digging in and trying to come up, like I always tell people, don't use ChatGPT for your final product ever.
yeah.
But it is a phenomenal brainstorming
Oh yeah.
tool. So
No,
I'm
it's
like,
it's
I need some good questions to ask this guy about X, Y, and Z. Some of the questions I'm asking you came from ChatGPT. I'm not
sure.
gonna
And they
lie.
should.
So let me ask you, I wanted to shift over here anyway, because a lot of what I do in my day-to-day business deals with AI these days.
Yeah.
I was an early adopter. I've been using AI for 2.5, 3 years. Back before most people knew what ChatGPT was, I was using ChatGPT. Now everyone knows what it is. To the point that presidential candidates were being called ChatGPT by other presidential candidates, stuff like that back
Yeah.
in the last election. Um, what Well, let me ask you this in two parts. What are some of the big changes in general that you see coming down the pipeline in the practice of law that you think are going to look totally different in 10 years? And how much of that is going to be AI driven?
Well,
And
it's a lot. It's going
subsequently,
to be.
how are you already using AI in what you
Yeah.
do?
So one of the reasons that I saw when I started the firm and when I started my firm in 2016 before I joined with OGC in the
Hmm.
same kind of model was that AI is going to crush this stuff. Like AI is going to change the way business is done, and it's going to pick up 80% of the business, and 80% of what lawyers can do is going to be eaten alive by AI.
Yeah,
So you need to figure out how to be the 20%.
yeah,
Like, how can you be value add? And I think that there's going to be a huge change in business and how lawyers do their job to actually, sorry, my dog's freaking out, but
I don't hear him.
okay, great. There's the 20% that we do where we can add that value is where you need to figure out how to be, right? So finding your space where you can be the value add consistently, that's where practice is going to change. The days, I think it's going to hurt the paralegal concept,
Hmm.
right? Because it does a lot of what a paralegal would do for you. And I'm not trying to knock the paralegal profession in any way to say that they're not hugely valuable because I know paralegals that are better than 90% than a lot of attorneys. They're superstars.
Sometimes they're the real brains behind the whole outfit.
Oh yeah, they do tons of work, but that work, a lot of that work, the form filing, those kind of things, you're gonna figure out AI is gonna do it all.
Yeah, no,
You know,
100%.
but
Well, it's
I think what it should do and what it can do if you use it properly is it elevates what you do to a strategic position and an advisory position, which is where you want to be. It's
yeah,
where attorneys used to be.
yeah.
They just kind of price themselves out of it.
No, I think that's coming on the pumping. I mean, I think we're living. Everyone kind of felt the internet in general was like this revolution. Other than a few people, I mean, was it economist Paul Krugman? I think it was Krugman, whatever you say his name. Who was like,
Yeah,
"Oh, this is going to be a fad. It's going to blow over." It's like, well, that was a missed call, right? But I think in the way that everyone kind of understood that the internet was going to revolutionize things, I think people are now like, I think this AI thing really is going to change things, but we're in the calm before the storm
yeah,
really hits. I mean, they're estimating that by the end of next year, and I think it's probably by the end of this year, 90+%, if not 95% of all content online will be AI generated.
it's insane. It's an insane
95%.
concept.
And it's changing everything. I'm a marketer by trade. That's what I do. And we do I used to do a lot of SEO and things like that. And of course, everyone now, you can go to ChatGPT and get it to write you an article. And so
Yeah,
there's now a glut of information out there. There's a glut of stuff going out to social media. And so now what ranks and what matters is changing drastically. And even like the social medias out there, your Instagrams and your Facebooks, like all the stuff that's going out there, a lot more of it is just AI generated
yeah,
content. And the one shift I think is coming, and I tell this to all of my clients, I say is we're moving towards rapidly a desire for artisanal human content. I keep wanting to like trademark that or something. I might just get the website, artisanalhumancontent.com.
yeah. I like it.
But I think that's the one thing, and that's why I do this podcast, right? Because it's just you and me, we're having a conversation, we're talking, and to my knowledge, AI is still not able to do this in any meaningful
Right.
way. It's not able to stop and really think about things. It's really good as a predictive model, and it's really good at simulating human relationships, but it's just never going to quite
No,
be
it's
uh,
not going to
this.
change that you still need people talking to people.
Yeah, and I think that's where everything is going to go. All of a sudden, there's going to be a real premium on people that are actually willing to sit down and just create content. Like
Yeah.
this is free advice, and free advice is worth what you pay for. But I tell this to all my clients, I recommend you go to ChatGPT and ask it for as many questions as it'll give you that are like FAQs, frequently asked questions in your area of expertise. So if
Yep.
they're PI law, give me 50 FAQs about traffic accidents. Give me 50, about slip and fall accidents, whatever. And then sit down with your camera and answer each one of those
Oh
and put
yeah.
it out there because people connect with that. If it's divorce law, if it's business law, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter, but they will connect with you. And that's how you build that.
No, I 100% agree. I've been doing it for 5 years.
I'm preaching to the choir here.
I got a library of content that speaks to this. So I agree 100%.
That's awesome. I noticed OGC has a blog and then also, if I saw correctly, a podcast. I didn't
Yeah.
see you on the podcast yet. Is that something with like, hey, we want each of you guys to like do a podcast at
Yeah,
some
I've been
point?
doing a couple. I've done a couple, so they're coming out. I think I have another one coming out in a week or two.
I think that's generally genuinely a very smart thing to do. Again,
Yeah.
for a whole host of reasons. Because again, I'm a marketer by trade, and a lot of times podcasts rank really, really well, especially if you syndicate them to like iTunes or
Yeah.
Spotify or whatever. Because those Google just loves them. They put them in the search, and
Sure.
those get pulled up. Even Google now they're doing the AI overview and stuff, and those are the types of things that the AI overview is kind of pulling from to try to
Yeah.
understand because it's real artisanal human content.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go buy that
You need to
website right
trademark
after.
it.
Yeah.
You might know
So
a
I
guy.
talked to somebody, actually, I talked to a business attorney. He's like, I don't think you can actually trademark that because uh, it's just descriptive. It's not
I think
unique or
I don't
whatever.
know.
But,
I'm not the
you're free
trademark
to
guy,
beg to
but
differ.
I would say that there may be a way to do it. You could at least get a
Maybe
logo
he
around
told
it.
me that because he was going to go trademark it right after I said
Yeah.
it. But
He already owns it.
what a jerk. What a jerk. Well, Mark, I appreciate your time. We've already gone for an hour, and I don't want to take up your whole morning. So here in a minute, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you our closing questions. I'm going to give those to you now so you can percolate on them, and then we're going to jump over, take a look at your sites again, and then we'll come back and I'll let you answer those. So question number one will be, if you could wave a magic wand and change something that's going on at OGC or at Prep for M&A or Prep for MA.com, either one of them or both, what would you change if you could magically wave a wand? Number two, if you can go back in time and meet young Mark, maybe 30 some odd years ago, and give him some advice, what advice would you give yourself and why? Other than, again, the obvious, buy a lot of
Mhm.
Bitcoin, hold it till 100K. And number three is if I gave you my pen and it was a magic pen and you could strike one law from the books, add one law to the books, or add a law to the books, what would you strike, edit, or change? And while you're percolating those again, we're going to jump over here and take a look at your site. Again, I'm talking to Mark Snyderman. He is a partner at OGC Solutions. That is ogcsolutions.com. He also is some of the brains behind prep4ma.com. So, going to give him a free shout out on that one as well. And I think we're having a really good conversation. If you're a business and you don't have in-house counsel right now, if you're a small to medium-sized business, I can't tell you how much I think this model is a good concept. And you don't have to work with Mark's company. Obviously, I'm sure there's probably other people out there that do this, but I really think everyone should be on this model. And clearly, Mark has a solid head on his shoulders and seems to know very well what he's talking about. So I think you'd be silly not to at least investigate him and investigate his company and get a sense for what they're doing. Because if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. And the best way of having your rights is always being able to just ask an attorney anytime you have a question, be proactive about what you're doing. So I firmly endorse this concept 100%. And having had this discussion with Mark, I think you can tell he's got a good head on his shoulders. So I'll let you guys make that final judge on that, but we'll have his links down below in the description as always. Our final sponsor for today is Rank with News. Is not being in the news regularly costing your firm or your company credibility and visibility? Do you feel that getting found in Google search is more about dumb luck than science? What if there was a guaranteed way to get your law firm or your business featured in major national publications like Yahoo News, Bloomberg, Forbes, Reuters, AP News, Business Insider, etc., and to see those articles ranking locally, nationally, sometimes in under 8 hours, sometimes in under 2 hours for major competitive keywords that you actually wanted to show up for? Well, what else would you even need to know? Rank with News is simply the most powerful way to hit page one in under 2 weeks safely, organically, and oftentimes functionally permanently. It's like guaranteed SEO or search engine optimization on steroids, ranking quickly and sticking long term. If you're tired of poor visibility for your business, visit rankwith.news to learn more and book a time to speak with a specialist about featuring your firm or your business in major national 8 and 9 figure traffic sites that can launch you to page one of Google and the other search engines and the AI overviews in a matter of hours and help you dominate your local marketplace. Get media exposure, rank higher in Google, build credibility, and win more customers and clients with rankwithnews.com or rankwith.news. All right, so Mark, I give you a magic wand, and with this
Yep.
magic wand, you can change something that's going on at OGC right now. It can be client acquisitions for you guys. It can be, how you process things. What would you change about it's like what's going wrong at OGC Solutions, but what would you change
Yeah.
if you could change anything?
I mean, I think I don't know that our website truly reflects
Hmm.
the ability, what we're actually how much value we can provide. So I think I would work on that.
No. Or have ChatGPT.
Exactly.
Hire a paralegal and have them do the chat GPT and then just proofread it and
Yeah.
publish it. In all honesty, actually there's free advice. I'm not even gonna charge you for that, but that might be
Hey,
your
thanks.
best. I'll invoice this in the mail actually. So if you go back in time then, question number two, and you can meet young Mark and give him
Yeah.
some advice. What advice would you give yourself when you're first starting out?
I always say, everything takes more time than you think it's going to.
Okay.
You need more patience.
That's fair. That's good life advice for anybody, really.
Yeah.
But hopefully, this podcast didn't take too much more time than you expected it to. So, but everything does. So, you should have expected it. Number three, magic pen time. So, I have a magic pen here. This magic pen is from kansasmonks.org. It's a Benedictine monastery in Atchison, Kansas. And I think one of the monks there must have blessed this pen because it has miraculous powers and it seems to be able to strike a law from the book, edit a law, or add a new law. So, Mark, if I were to give you this pen and you could make one change with it because it's about out of ink, what
Yeah.
change would you make and why?
I'd work on the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is, overtime law,
Hmm.
and fix how that works with salaried employees over, I think it's been played with so many times. The law is a complete disaster
Oh, wow.
in terms of understanding when you have to pay somebody overtime and when you don't, when they're salaried, when they're not, and how do you work with clients that are, when you have, especially in federal contracting where you have, billable hours to the government and you can't pay overtime, but you have to pay overtime because the law says you have to pay overtime and you have a lot of conflicting stuff. So I would go in and fix that in a heartbeat.
Smooth it all. A lot of people like I don't ever want to be on salary because salary is like here's your pay ceiling. Good luck.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I never thought, I've never heard, you're the first person to make that suggestion. So that's kind of a fascinating option. So, well, Mark, thank you again very much for being on the podcast. I've enjoyed our conversation. I think I've learned a lot today. It's been a really good time. I do like to let my guests have the final word. Are there any parting words of wisdom or last thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with?
First, I'd just like to say thank you for having me on. I appreciate it very much.
Pleasure.
And in the end, just be kind and and follow your passions and do what you like, but be kind when you're doing it.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Attorney Post. As always, I'm your host, Justin West. I've been chatting with Mark Snyderman, who is a partner again over at OGC Solutions. As always, though this podcast does deal with a number of legal issues, it does not itself constitute legal advice. And if you have a legal issue, you should always take the advice of a competent attorney in an area that you live in, who works in the area you live in and focuses on the area that you have an issue with. Obviously, if you're in business law, I'd highly recommend having counsel, and I definitely recommend a system like what OGC is doing. And I think having talked to Mark again, he would be a great resource for you, as would everyone else. I'm assuming at Outside General Counsel Solutions. Sorry, OGC solutions.com. So again, we'll have a link down below to their information. As far as the podcast goes, if you're watching us on any of the major podcast repositories, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, etc., leave us a review, like us, whatever it makes sense. If you're on YouTube, leave a comment down below as well as subscribe. As always, let us know if there's anything in this podcast that you heard that made a lot of sense to you. But the number one thing you can do is if you know someone who would benefit from this information, please share it with them, because as I always say, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any, and the same goes for them. So help them, share this podcast, and until next time, I'm Justin. Thank you guys for listening, and bye-bye.